What's the big idea?
I don't think it will, because it's usually that. Okay, no, it's fine.
Let's go, Grandma.
Yeah.
All right, we're recording now.
Okay.
So
we should probably go wide.
So this is welcome to everybody. Welcome everybody. This is the ultimate volleyball mindset show.
Sounds good.
Sounds intimidating.
You like that? The ultimate volleyball or the show, the mindset show.
So you're going to tell me what the ultimate mindset is? Is that?
The ultimate volleyball mindset show. I think that sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yep. All right, welcome everybody. Before we get started, I got to do something here.
Oh, he's going to do it.
So,
We're wide angle still.
Yeah, we're wide angle, but I'm
Okay.
gonna. So I don't know
Nice.
if you can see that. I don't know if you can see this at home, and a lot of people are listening on the radio. So what I'll describe, Eric, describe what I'm doing to the people listening. Not that anybody's listening, but just
You're putting on, I don't even know what they're called, a wrist sweat thing.
a
What's it
wristband.
called? Oh,
Are you from a different
they're called
planet?
wristband? Yeah, right.
Oh my god! I'm putting on a wristband, not just any wristband, a Uniqlo wristband. I'm gonna zoom in here on me now. That's it, right there, Uniqlo, and I'm wearing the old RF hat.
So, like, these symbols are one and the same.
No, this is an RF for
Yeah,
Roger Federer.
But I mean, is it the same brand?
No,
Or this is a
no.
brand, and then they actually make RF stuff.
Yes, I have a funny story. The reason why I'm wearing this stuff, I should point out today, is because Roger Federer. Again, for the people listening in the year 3000, right? Roger Federer just announced his retirement from tennis, right? And Roger Federer is sort of perfect symbol of this show, right? What's the name of the show? The Ultimate Volleyball Show. No,
Oh,
the
I can't remember.
the
I was like,
mindset,
is it
the Ultimate
perfect?
Volleyball Mindset Show.
Yes.
Yes, and because Roger Federer has the ultimate. He doesn't have the volleyball part, but he has the ultimate mindset, right? And now, Eric, you mentioned this brand, so I'm going to go on about this for a while, okay? Because I have a funny story about this brand.
Okay.
So this logo, when Roger Federer,
Pretty cool logo. I do
yeah,
like it.
it's an R and an F, right? Stands for Roger Federer, and he had a big fight with Nike when he was leaving Nike. So when he signed with Uniqlo, which is again my wristband, Uniqlo is his new sponsor at the end of his career, and I'm wearing this wristband for the duration of the show.
The
Because you
whole
get
show?
sweaty?
Yeah, the whole show.
Because you get sweaty?
The whole show
What
because
if it goes on for hours?
well, then the wristband stays on for hours.
His hand will fall off.
That's how dedicated I am to this.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Well, I give it my all. I'm here for the people, and I'll sweat all over. I'll sweat all over everything.
Okay.
Anyway,
Don't cause a short.
yeah. Sure. What are these things called again? They're wrist towels.
Sweat.
Wrist
I
towels.
can't believe I didn't think of wristband.
So Eric didn't know what a wristband was. This is like a Meach with pasta and lasagna last.
Wristband. I don't know.
Or Meach found out that
Yeah. Pizza.
no, that was
Kidding.
like spaghetti and lasagna. Meach didn't know that those were pastas.
Wow.
There's a lot of them. You know?
It's confusing.
There's a lot of them.
Anyway, let's get back to my Roger Federer story because it ties in with mindset. Okay, so this logo, when he was leaving Nike, Nike said, "That's our logo." And he said, "No, this is a logo that we came up with." But Nike said that they had the rights to the logo. So, now Federer is not like a super greedy guy, but he does a lot of, so these hats, I bought these hats off his own website, and all of the money goes to charity that he supports, like a really good charity. I forget which one it is, but he supports a pretty awesome charity. I don't think it's tennis related. And so he wanted to keep the rights to the logo because he was selling these hats and like they're super cheap, and the money, like I said, all goes to charity. And I think he ultimately won, obviously, because he's still selling the hats. But it's the second time recently that Nike was in a... Remember the Kawhi Leonard they had a fight with over... They said they owned his claw logo, too, or something like that, too.
I didn't know that.
The Kawhi logo when he left Toronto.
Yeah.
And when he switched over to... I guess he signed with... Was it Converse? Who signed Kawhi's shoe? Who makes Kawhi's shoe? Anyway,
I don't know.
Yeah.
there was a dispute with Nike, too, about some logo that he... Oh, New Balance, right? He switched to New Balance.
Okay,
Remember
yeah.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Federer won the logo thing, and
Right.
that's why he's able to keep raising money for charity. And the reason why the Federer thing's so cool is because it ties in with the mindset, because he's the ultimate mindset champion and kind of guy, and he has a funny story about his whole career and mindset change that we'll get into later. But for now, I guess, Erik, what do you think of when you hear the word mindset?
I think of, I think it's a big buzzword nowadays. Like you see it kind of branded all over the place. People trying to sell books about mindset, the ultimate mindset training book. So I think it's used a lot, but it's kind of
You mentioned earlier too that you think it's become, I guess, like a capitalist sort of trick used by people who don't really live it, but they just sort of try to sell it.
And that you see that in a lot of terms, right? Like, now I'm trying to think of more terms. Mindset is definitely a big one.
Living your best life. Living your best life. That's a good one. I love that one. When people say living your best life and they're like got a horrible job. Horrible life.
Yeah.
It'd be funny if a prisoner said that to somebody.
Like
tattooed. Live your best life, homie. Sorry, I don't know why I said that.
So who would be who would be the best mindset coach you can think of? Or no, we shouldn't say now who in particular. There's many we can think of. Like Federer would be one person.
Yeah. I think there's certain people for me the biggies are like you go through. I mean, sometimes I think Michael Jordan is interesting because I think you could look at Michael Jordan as I don't know if his mindset is crazy or like obsessive, or is it good? Like, would Michael Jordan, I was thinking about this the other day, if he was coaching a little league, would he be that like win now type of, I think he might be that win now motherfucker versus I don't know if he's a pro. I mean, I don't know. It's tricky. I don't think so, but yeah, because I mean, see, that's the thing that people don't understand too.
I know why you're thinking that. Though.
Yeah, but I know why. But he doesn't. There's a difference. But this is what thing that I always want to get in when I talk about mindset with people is that there's a huge difference between working with adults who have done their own. And this in one episode we were talking about this, and I forgot to mention it because we were talking about. You mentioned about coaches and their journey of shouldn't they be developing players even at the highest levels, national team level.
Right, I remember that.
And my what I didn't say at the time that I was thinking later was, I think, and Michael Jordan probably would agree with this too, is that there's a difference between developing a kid and developing an adult, right? Like, so a kid you need to help them develop, an adult it's on them. Like,
right.
You reach a point where that's the adult's responsibility to take care of their own stuff.
Right.
If you're telling a teammate in the Chicago Bulls, like Michael Jordan was, if he has to tell a teammate to go work out, that's his right to get pissed off. But I think if he's dealing with a young kid, he would do it. But it's kind of interesting with Michael Jordan because you don't know, because he's also portrayed as this monster, and how he schools young kids on basketball courts. But I think that's usually to teach a lesson, whereas someone like Kobe was pretty fascinating, right? Because his, he was getting into youth coaching and he was just starting that whole second journey of his life, and brutal that when he passed away. I was like, horrible day, because I don't even think I was a huge Kobe Bryant fan, but I always hated Kobe Bryant because he was like always on the wrong team, and he always killing other teams, right?
The ones that you liked, right?
Yeah, the ones that we liked, and the whole ball hog thing when he was younger. But his mindset, man, did he ever grow into, the Mamba mentality and the idea that you just work so hard, right? Like and you don't get phased. That was so cool about Kobe. Like, I learned a lot more about him after he passed away in terms of that, in that regard. But so the big ones are like, sorry, just to go back. So you got Karch Karai in volleyball. Obviously, I think he's the king of mindset and stoic sort of mentality, even keel all the way through.
He's got to be,
and then you got I think of Michael Jordan as one of those guys. You think of Kobe Bryant as one of those guys. You think of Wayne Gretzky in hockey, just super unflappable, I think.
Especially
Muhammad
Gretzky.
Ali 2000. Yes. Muhammad Ali was he almost had fun with everything too. Muhammad Ali was like I think everybody's sort of a childhood hero is Muhammad Ali, and super mindset oriented. I mean, some of his quotes are like, to win, all I have to do is suffer. Like, this was such a great, like, that was when he was going to fight.
That's a quote?
Yeah, that's a quote.
Wow.
They were talking about how is he going to beat Leon Spinks, because he lost to Leon Spinks, nobody at the time, and that's when Ollie lost his championship, and he went to regain it for the third time.
That's a wicked quote.
And the quote was, "Yeah, to win, all I have to do is suffer." That's like, or another one by Ali I loved was, a reporter asked him how many sit-ups can you do, and he said, "I don't know." And they go, "What do you mean you don't know?" He goes, "Well, I never started counting until they started hurting." I was like, wow, that's a pretty good one.
Yes.
Because they don't count till they hurt. I mean, that's not the right mindset, I think, for a kid in volleyball. Like, don't go out there and do 1,000,000 squats. But Karch had that too. Karch had a crazy workout. I read once in a magazine years ago that he'd do like 500 block jumps at a net, or 1,000 or something.
Yeah.
And that's how he got his crazy vertical, right? But see, that's the other thing too. Like, people don't understand, I think, to be super high level, you can't be balanced, like, in anything, right? Like, no matter what it is. Like, if I'm, I run an organization that's pretty successful, and I do crazy stupid things to make it succeed, like working at crazy times.
Yeah, the rebalancing happens at some point.
Yeah, you try to catch up on things, but you're not like these athletes. People don't understand, like, the high level athletes are, unbalanced. Like, it sounds mean to say it that way, but I mean, you ever heard that story?
What do you mean by unbalanced?
They just can't lead that life of, like, okay, now I'll spend 3 hours working on this, and I'll spend 3 hours working on that. I'll spend a bit of time with my family. They sacrifice all that, right? Like the highest level athletes, they don't spend time with their family. They don't, they do crazy things. Like, you remember, speaking of Kobe Bryant, you remember that story of Kobe Bryant, what he would do on shoot-around days before games, right? Yeah, Erik, do you want to tell that?
Where was that? Well, I don't know why everyone knows that. Is it because when he passed away, there's that little documentary that went around about him or something?
Yeah, I think so. And YouTube clips about how hard he worked. I don't know, Meach, you ever heard this stuff?
I haven't. I wasn't following him.
I mean, I don't know.
So when Kobe passed away, it would come out frequently about what he would do to mentally gain an edge over an athlete, right? Yeah. And so he was out there. He'd be out there.
Was it like pre-game or something?
Yeah, pre-game.
6 hours before a game or something?
Yeah. The morning of a game. Morning of a game, a guy would show up at the shoot-around, and Kobe would be out there shooting already. He's like, holy smokes, I thought I was early, but Kobe's out here shooting around. And the guy would shoot around for an hour or something and leave, and Kobe was still out there. And then he'd come back, right, pre-game. Yeah. And Kobe's still there shooting. Still there. Yeah, still there shooting.
Oh, this is his opponent, by the way.
Yeah, right? Yeah. This is an opposing teammate. Yeah, opposing player. And then he later went up to Kobe or something and said that, I was waiting for you to leave. Like, I don't know why you were still there the whole time. And Kobe said, oh, no, the reason why I didn't leave was because I knew you were there. Yeah. Just to psych out his opponent.
And I knew you were going to come back.
Yeah, I knew you were going to come back. And the I don't even know if we got that story right, but bottom line is Kobe Bryant he was already there for several hours doing his thing. And because somebody walked in, maybe when he was even ready to wrap up, he stuck around just to show that guy that I'm going to work harder than you. I am working harder than you.
That's crazy, though, because that means he's got to go into the change room. He's got to have a ton of food with him. He's got to recalibrate up, and then he gets back out there.
Well, his philosophy, I mean, you heard his philosophy, right?
Hold on, but he's smart enough that he's not going to compromise game time performance by overworking in pregame. So, but that's what I mean. How does he have the intelligence and know-how of his own body to be able to be out there warming up? It's not like he's killing himself, and he's going to stay out there longer than that guy. But then he refuels at some point, and he does it properly. Yeah. Or maybe he even sacrifices a little bit of refueling, and he doesn't refuel properly, and he just gets in the game and he pushes himself even harder. Yeah. Like, that's the magic that I don't understand how to do. Like,
well, that's the thing. I think that these guys, like these rare guys, they don't think about refueling. They don't think about. They don't think they would sacrifice. No. I mean, don't get me wrong. They'll refuel at the end of the day, and they'll refuel before the next game. But his whole philosophy was, remember that speech? He's like, oh, if I shoot around, at, what is it, like 1 a.m. or something, and then I go to home and sleep for a couple hours, then I can he basically fits in like 2 or 3 more shoot arounds a day over his opponents. And he does the math over, and this gets into what we're talking about too, long-term thinking. He thinks about that huge long-term picture. You do the math on how many more shoot rounds I've done versus my opponent over a 10, 15-year career. It's, thousands and thousands of hours more. Yeah, he squeezes in an extra 2 or 3 hours of shoot around a day by sleeping less, or and he thinks that will outdo it. Now, I heard other players talk about this, like volleyball players have talked about this too, where sometimes mental training, the best mental training you can do is doing something that you don't think your opponents are doing. And even if they are, that's different.
So anything like getting up early and training.
Well, I knew guys that would go to the beach and they would train.
Yeah, think about what that does in your head, because it's already, you're establishing I'm working harder than my opponent because I'm doing this hard thing.
Especially if you're the only one out there.
Exactly.
Especially in a public place where if you're the only one out there, then you got to be thinking, hey, I'm getting this advantage that the other guys don't, and that can just boost you as well.
That's what I think the Kobe Bryant thing was, and I think boxers have known this forever. That's why you see footage of boxers running at crazy times.
Well, Ali, all I have to do is suffer.
Yeah, all I have to do is suffer and just suffer more than the next guy.
Going out there at 6 in the morning or earlier.
Yeah, and that's why I tell young players too. Like if you want to edge on your opponent, sometimes just doing stuff that you don't think they're doing is a great way for you to gain that edge, because it's whether it's and it is nice, especially if you're legit doing something that other people aren't doing, right? That's the hard work. But that's what I meant by the imbalance of these guys. They do crazy things, right? And sometimes people have to ask themselves, do they want that life, right? A lot of times we want the result, but we don't have any understanding of the work it takes to get that result. I see it all the time, and they you want the result without the work.
Can everyone be a Kobe or a Michael Jordan? No, right?
I don't think so.
No. So, and what is it that allows them to? Is it again a genetic thing or whatever? Like, so I don't know what the answer to that is, but like, yeah.
My opinion is that there has to be some serious genetics in it. Like someone in your family has to have a tenacity in them, and I think a shitty life. I think that the harder life either your parents go through or you go through, there is something about, Damon John, the Shark Tank guy, Fubu founder, he wrote a book called The Power of Broke. And the whole premise of that book is that, something happens if you come from success or you live an easier life, you don't work as hard. You're not as hungry, right? Versus the people that come from inner city, tough background, tough stuff in their family history. Michael Jordan didn't come from a bad background. He came from pretty, lower middle class family. But there is something in his. That's where the genetic nature nurture thing kicks in.
Yeah.
Too, right?
Well, Jordan
apparently came from a pretty good family.
Well, Kobe did as well.
Yeah.
Wasn't he born in Germany or something?
Yeah. Yep.
And then they came over to the U.S. But like I think there's important differences between.
Kobe's dad was a pro athlete too.
Right. Yeah.
Pro player.
But I think when Kobe was coming up to like the NBA, like he had a more linear progression, I think, where Jordan was good, but he was even getting overlooked and stuff, and even being told like you're not that good or you're not that tall.
Pretty. Well, there's kind of a myth that Jordan, in high school, Jordan got cut from his varsity team. Which he wasn't tall enough, and he hung from the bar to try to get taller, like an episode of Brady Bunch you saw, where Bobby tries to grow by hanging from a bar in his closet. Yeah, so it's weird because he grew taller than anybody in his family. It's very
was
strange.
Jordan the youngest?
Jordan, I think he was. I think he had an older brother, and I think there might have been a younger brother later.
Okay,
I'm not sure. Maybe he was the youngest, but anyway, we could look this stuff up, but we don't do it. But Jordan. So I think though, like not to get too far into Jordan and Kobe, but I think the idea is that people don't know what they don't know when it comes to reaching that level, like the amount of work it takes. This is why, people who crap on LeBron, like I'm not a huge LeBron fan. I shouldn't say that. I really admire LeBron James and the amount of work he must put in, especially in his health, right? Like the guy is healthy and still performing. And, the whole debate of Michael Jordan, LeBron is kind of crazy to me, but the idea, like these athletes, these high level performing athletes, people don't know what they're doing. Like, it's 24/7 of something to do with performance. And just imagine that. So for young athletes who want to be professionals, especially in volleyball, it's not a glamorous life living professionally. I mean, like when I played in South America, it was like, I wouldn't have called it professional at the time. Today it's defined as professional because we got a little bit of money to play in a men's league and it was a super high level. But it's not like, stadiums and people asking me for my, it was living like crap, and I had to get a teaching job to support it. And, it's not what people think it is. It's, and it's a lot of hard work. And I remember deciding in my last couple of years of university that I was going to actually go for playing serious volleyball and getting serious about volleyball. And it, it's a lot, and it's no payoff. By the way, for 90%, 99% of volleyball players, there's no payoff if they go pro.
It's just not a lot.
Yeah, financial. It's very difficult living. Like your parents have to support you for a while, or you have to find a job, and then in which case, if you find a job, we talked about this, right? Then it's hard to stay at that level because now you're working something else. Whereas athletes, who throw themselves in full force, it's a lot of sacrifice, more sacrifice than people understand. In anything you do, no matter what you want to do excellently, you are not living that balanced lifestyle that, people lie about on social media, like, vacation times, relaxing. Like you saw Elon Musk's body, right? Remember the famous video? White. Did you see that? The famous photos of Elon Musk out on the beach on vacation somewhere, and he's like pasty white. I still think they touched up those photos, but but the guy doesn't take his shirt off. The guy doesn't go on vacation because he's working his ass off all the time.
Right.
So that's the mindset thing I think that people forget about there. But
what I was trying to get at between like talking about Kobe and Jordan, it's just like how do you teach mindset? Because a lot of it is your upbringing or the pain you went through or the pain you perceived anyways. You as a kid or whatever, you may perceive yourself to be less significant or not as good as the other player. That's not a pain. That's something you're perceiving in your own mind. You're already formulating that at a young age, right? That's what it sounds like Jordan may have done in high school. He's like, oh geez, I'm not tall enough, so he's already doing. But in Kobe's case, it may be a little bit different. Maybe he had a little more self-confidence. But they both ended up in two different ways getting to that insane level. So, like,
Kobe, I think, openly admits that he really emulated Jordan.
Okay,
like Kobe does say that he wanted to be Jordan. Like he honestly copied the way he walked and talked. He even admitted that.
Wow.
Like if you listen, that's why one of the reasons I didn't like Kobe when I was a kid, because he was an imitation of Michael Jordan. Like literally the way he walked, the way he talked, and he even said that later on that he said as that like older player that he changed his voice to talk like Michael Jordan would talk. Like if you go watch clips of Kobe when he came to the league, he was just impersonating Michael Jordan. The limp, the voice, everything, and that's why he and Jordan got along, because Jordan admired the fact that this guy wanted it so badly that he would call, he called Jordan in the middle of the night asking him questions, and Jordan would give him advice and
on different teams.
Yeah, well, they were pros, and Jordan loved it because he saw in Kobe this guy, because Kobe wanted to do the defensive work, and so even the work ethic and all of the stuff I think he emulated. But again, that takes a quality, right? Well, it's because we can all watch a documentary on Michael Jordan and like nobody will do it. It's like one person might do it.
That's Novak he's done that with Rafa and Roger, right? I think known so. When he was younger, he was kind of awkward, but he would make impersonations of Nadal and stuff like that, and Federer, and then even some female players, I think.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I think that's why a lot of people didn't like him earlier, or still don't like him earlier on, because they perceived it as him trying to like mock the other players, I think.
Oh well, he did impersonate players.
No, he did,
as a joke.
Right.
But that was humor. I think the reason why people didn't like Novak was because of his talk about mindset. He would flip out. Right. People hated Novak flipping out.
That's why they hate Kyrgios.
And they hated when Djokovic would overly celebrate. Like in tennis, right? It's a very low-key, polite sport. And he would do blatant celebrations. Yeah. Or even like, I mean, one time I remember too, and I love Novak Djokovic today. I think he's like amazing player and unbelievable, and he's different, and I think the whole COVID situation changed him fundamentally as a person, I think, but he, you know, his, I remember one time he was playing against an injured Federer. Like everybody knew Federer had an injury. And Djokovic was screaming and looking up at the crowd like angrily, right? Because he gets tired of being, you know, treated as second fiddle to Roger and Rafa.
Yeah.
They're so beloved, and he's like not loved. And a lot of people think that it's because he's from Eastern Europe, and you know, maybe there's some truth to that. He's not refined the way a Western European player is, and people, you know, I'm sure there's some discrimination, racism involved in that too. But it basically is his demeanor, right? That's what people didn't like about Djokovic for a long time, was that he was, you know, very
especially
vocal.
In contrast to
And
Roger
yes,
and Rafael,
yes, and
right?
and that's why I wanted to talk about Roger today, because Roger had anger problems when he was young. So when he was a young player, he would smash rackets, he would flip out. You can't see it, now.
Yeah.
But he had major anger problems. Talking about mindset, and one of the things that, I mean, it happened after he had a coach when he was young who, just after he turned pro, his coach died in a car accident. And he was like a father to, like, you know, older brother to Federer. So it was devastating to him. And a lot of that anger came from that. And I forget who it was, but Federer talked with someone about the anger. And once he learned to control his emotions in the moment, which, you know, connects us with volleyball, he just became, like, you couldn't tell if Federer was losing or winning any match, you know? He could be falling apart, and he just had the same look on his face.
You're saying he ended up using the anger, and then that actually improved his game? Is that what you're trying to
Well, that's the key. That's the question. That's actually one of the notes I have for this show is like, is it, so there's one thing about suppressing anger, and there's another one to not feel anger.
Yeah.
Suppressing anger is not good. It's just fake, right? It's like, I'm boiling on the inside, I'm about to explode, but I'm going to look calm on the outside. That's not going to help you play better. That's not going to help you perform better. Right. But if you can genuinely understand that the moment you're frustrated, or the thing you're frustrated about, is not major, then there's legitimate loss of anger. And I think Federer got a bit of that. I think Federer learned that there's a lot of tennis, there's a lot of points. It's going to be a million points, millions of points. It doesn't matter. I think he got strong that way. And whether or not he was coached into that, because I think there is something there where you can probably, you know, reach that level of learning with someone. But I don't know, it's really hard to teach. I think Djokovic is actually learning this through what he went through with the vaccination thing and the whole, you know, being treated roughly and being vilified on that level. I think he's learned a certain level of perspective. I saw him in an interview at Wimbledon, and he's a different guy. Yeah. Different guy. He's not wound up. He gets fiery, but he's not going to get angry over little things.
Okay. So what is the
wisdom, I guess.
Difference between anger and, like, you know, say you're playing twos or whatever, and opponent on the other side of the court is just being a dick and like chirping you and stuff, and you know, there's a good thing out of that, because you can use that, like, especially when there's an asshole on the other side of the court, you can use that energy to just like pound the ball at them, right? So that's not anger. That's just because, you know, like, that's my question to you.
Yes. Well, you know that about me too, a little bit.
That's why I'm asking you.
Yeah, I have that.
Because you said, if you suppress your anger, that's not good, right? But in the case where someone like is just being a dick on the court, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, because you're gonna stay composed. Yeah, you're not gonna blow out yourself. But that's what I'm at. Like, is that anger when they're slating you, or that's just, you know, that's just like kind of amping you up? Because some people. Sometimes I work well against that energy. Yep. But then it depends on the type of language or whatever. Yeah. Chirping.
No, sometimes
like I can't respond to it in an overcoming way, right? But it has to be pretty. Yeah. So
and I think so. I know exactly. Yeah. So you're wondering, like, is that anger if you're getting fired up over the opponent's actions and holding on to it?
In that regard, I don't agree that suppressing.
Yes. I use things. So like chalkboard material is what we call that, right? Like where if someone on the other team says something and then the coach hears it, or a teammate hears it, or a player hears it, and they all write it on the whiteboard, and they're like, that guy or that player said this. And everybody's like, oh, and it fires the ball up. It's all external motivation. And for me, I have historically looked for those things. Like Michael Jordan does this.
It's
and
part of a lot of the game, especially
and I
basketball.
didn't learn it from anybody either. But whenever something was said to me, whether it's sports or on the court or something, I would hold that. I would remember it.
Yeah.
And every time I saw that player, I would try to hit them in the head or something. I would try to use that to motivate me. But I wasn't angry at the person.
No,
that's the
but
thing.
it's related to anger because it's an insult or it's
an intentional attempt by the athlete or by the person, because I do it in business too. Like I get motivated by things and I hold on to them for a long time in my head, and I use that to motivate me if it's a negative comment. But if you, I don't think it's not an anger as much as a desire to be motivated. You know what I mean? Like it's an intentional awareness that you need to get
free motivation.
Fired up.
Like how, if we think about it in what world, like if someone does say something like you suck or whatever at volleyball, like you'll never do well. Like how, in most situations, I think most people would be motivated by that. Right?
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes
demotivated.
Meach. What's the opposite of that?
Yeah, I guess demotivated. And that's what mindset about is really about how can you balance your emotions. Really, when is the time to get excited about a play or to get excited about a particular moment versus get mad on it. That's the real balance that I think a lot of players can learn how to control.
Yeah, and that's exactly. It's going to take a while to actually learn it, because now that I'm thinking about what I just said, maybe some players would crumble if some players said you suck, you're never going to make it to finals, and we're talking like 13U or something or whatever. The player who just received that insult, they might crumble, right?
Or even in their 20s, like you don't know, like. Everybody brings their life story to these moments, right? And that's why it's so tricky. Like when I was teaching for a long time too, I was always mindful that something I say as an offhand joke could devastate someone. You know what I mean? Like you always have to worry about that. And I think every teacher, every coach can relate to saying something that they don't know what that person.
Depends who it comes from, right?
Who it comes from,
because
and who's the listener. It's
a lot of the time people that we play against in sports that I even played against, like in varsity. I didn't know them, but I respect them, and in some ways I looked up to them. Like I just love the way that person's served or attacked the ball or whatever. And so if all of a sudden I heard them like just be like, "Yo, you suck," and then like that. They've, in different ways they've expressed that like through the net or whatever. Right. And then all of a sudden I'm like, holy shit. Like, but luckily in that time, like because I was playing varsity when I was already fairly older, that it didn't really, I was just more shocked. I just like turn around and I tell my teammates, "Did you see what the fuck you just said?"
No, I think it bothered you a lot, and I think it does bother you, and it has bothered you. But that's not a bad thing. That's
exactly. I was able to use it,
because
though.
yes,
I was able to use it.
Yeah, that's good. Sometimes you use it, and sometimes it bothered you more, and you would perform worse. And so that's what can happen to players too. And don't kid, like I'm sure that I performed worse at some times.
It was mostly in rec ball that it affected me more.
Yeah, yes.
But in serious competition, when I actually had like a legit team I was on, I think I just felt more secure because I felt not only faith in myself as a player, but in my team.
But it's not only, I don't think it even cuts into faith. I think it cuts into your kindness. Like I think, there's some things that really kind people, not to pump your tires. You're a kind person,
right?
So you don't like, and you can't understand.
Yeah,
someone acting like that, and you know what? That's a good thing that you don't understand that. You know what I mean?
And it'd be worse if I did know them.
If you understood, like let's suppose you understood their level of whatever they're doing, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you knew them, and then they're doing it as some sort of game or something, it bothers you more because you can't relate to it, and that's a good thing. For me, it motivated me because. My dad never loved me. No, I'm just kidding. I gotta go. No, it motivated me because I think I just have this chip on my shoulder about, and it's not even about like height or something like that. Like I'm 6'4", so.
We're not laughing because it's not true.
No, what? Well, there's a reason why we're doing this podcast. Sitting down, my friends. No, I'm like 5'11", and I used to be 6 foot tall before I
Zuby, you're the master of your own height.
I guess so. No, maybe it was a short thing. I don't know. Actually, we're going to talk about that, by the way. We're going to do a short versus tall show. We have some cool theories on why short players are the way they are versus tall players. But no, I think mine was more so just, I was the youngest in my family. So I think that I was very, a little more adjusted for the longest time. I do have a younger sister now, but she was born much later with my parents. I was a teenager, and we were all disgusted because that meant our parents were still having sex. That was gross. Very disturbing. But anyway, so I had all the qualities of the youngest child. Out of five boys, I was the youngest child. So I think there was a confidence in me that whenever I was faced with something, I knew I could overcome it. And it usually it's weird, but it always made me play better. So I would look for things and I would remember things. And I guess that's not a great way to live. But it's not like I would hold on to it at bedtime.
Right. And
although Teddy did have the stuffing squeezed out of him from anger.
But it's also not like you were venting anger verbally on the court. You were...
No, I was very quiet.
You were storing it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was a quiet player, yes.
You weren't like pounding the ball and be like, yeah.
No, I loved it the other way.
Yeah.
I'd love it the other way.
Yeah.
Like hit an ace or crank one and then
say
just
nothing.
Say nothing.
Yeah.
Act like nothing.
And just know.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
Meach has seen me. In my prime. I was a bit of a jerk. I guess some people thought I was a jerk. Eh? I didn't know
I
that.
remember telling me that.
So like a friend years later said to me, "Oh yeah, I know you're that cocky guy." I was like, "I'm not cocky," but I guess that's portrayal, right? Yeah. But I think that's part of that whole hit the ball, turn around like it must have looked cocky.
Yeah, or someone sees someone who's confident and they're gonna.
Yes, it can be, but I never thought that I came off as cocky.
No, but
I guess Meach, you would know.
I got that once. I heard that and
about yourself.
Yeah, about myself.
Oh wow!
And I considered myself to be very, very humble.
Yeah.
But I heard actually a teacher say that about me. I was shocked. I was like,
oh wow!
It kind of turned me around to just take more perspective of how I was being portrayed, because
or what vibe you were giving off. But it matters to me. So I've learned as I get older too. It really matters who's looking too, because sometimes people are intimidated by confidence and they don't like it.
Right.
Because if they're not a confident person.
Well, and that's why they'll, instead of saying you're confident, they're just going to say you're cocky.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. That's a good little debate or topic to get into. It's a fine line between cockiness and confidence. I always tell people, I've had, I've seen and heard coaches tell their teams to be more confident. And again, it's kind of like one of those things where you just can't say it.
Well, yeah.
You just can't say be confident to someone. It's almost the opposite. Like when I see somebody trying to be confident, it's the exact opposite of confidence.
Yeah.
It's like, we can do it. Why are you crying?
It's just,
I don't know, but I know we can.
It doesn't mean be fake, and it doesn't mean
I think that you can only. Sorry, Meach, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I think that on the other side of it, you can be confident without being cocky. Cocky is basically not having respect for other players. I think that's kind of sums it up in terms of the difference between having a rudeness about you or respecting, no matter, even if it's even if it's lower level players, you can always be confident or always be respectful of who you are playing against, or who you're playing with, and even look good doing it.
While exuding confidence.
I think volleyball is one of those sports where, I guess maybe because there's a net division, it's easy not to be too cocky. I feel basketball is kind of one where,
there's more chirping and stuff.
You're one-on-one. You're right against the players, basically.
Good point.
Get in their face.
When you do something on the volleyball court, basically, it's done.
Yeah, and you can't even stare down through the net. You get a warning, right, when you do that, right? So,
and the net,
there's a lot of politeness. built into the sport.
Yeah, and the net itself is humbling, right? Like,
Yes.
you know, you
that's
can,
a good one.
you know, if you miss a shot, it's a little less embarrassing than hitting it into the net or getting blocked, right? 2-man triple block.
Right.
That happens a lot more frequently. You know, even a basketball block is like a great play. But one thing to go back, I like what you said. You were talking about cockiness and confidence. I always tell people that cockiness is the opposite of confidence, right? Because being arrogant is, we all know people who are arrogant or players who are arrogant, and they were not confident people. They fell apart.
Yeah, you go
in
after
crunch
them,
time.
but yeah,
you go after them
go after
because
them,
you
yeah.
know that. So that's what I mean by fake confidence is actually, or cockiness can come off as cockiness, arrogance, rudeness. These are insecure players, and I want young players to hear this too, because I see young players thinking that cockiness is the same as confidence, and it's not, right?
Absolutely not.
And going back to Ali, we talked about people used to think he was cocky, but he was joking. Right, he was joking. His cockiness was joking.
Yeah.
He was a genuinely confident person who would make jokes to sell tickets.
He's
And I think
he's incredibly charismatic.
and that was the
part
start of it in popular culture, right? I think a lot of people started growing up trying to copy Muhammad Ali. He was the first guy, you know, predict the round, he'd knock the guy out, but he, you know, his whole thing was that he'd watch professional wrestling, and he knew that sold tickets. You know, he wanted to copy those professional wrestlers, Gorgeous George or whatever. And so that's where he got that idea, and people didn't understand that about him. But he was actually a humble, quiet guy, right, in his private life.
And you would actually know that as well because of how he acted afterwards. It wasn't like, oh, I beat you, I cleaned the floor with you after it was done. He was always respectful in terms of the after-match results.
Yeah, and visited guys in hospitals if there was Ken Norton was in a car accident. Ali was the first guy to visit him in the hospital, and even Frazier, like they hospitalized each other in a couple fights, and Ali was but Frazier, I mean, that's a whole other issue with Frazier and Ali. Frazier never got over the way Ali taunted him and stuff like that. But
he never did?
No, until the very end, they reconciled before they both passed away. But it was kind of weird because Joe never really got over. And Ali thought the whole time they were just selling tickets, but Joe Frazier got really offended, especially at the racial stuff, because in that time where Ali sort of criticized Joe Frazier for supporting the system in the 60s, and Ali was out there giving up everything, and then Joe Frazier claimed his title while he was in jail for fighting against the idea of war at that time. And it's funny that we mentioned Novak Djokovic and Ali, because that comes up. A lot of people are comparing Djokovic. Some people get very offended at comparing Djokovic to Ali because of it. But to give up everything for something you believe in, I think, is what the idea. And even in Ali's time, people forget that he was vilified and hated for it at the time, like hated more than anybody in America. Only history kind of showed that he was, doing the right sort of thing. So, but sorry, Erik, I think you were going to say something when we were talking about cockiness and.
Well, yeah. So that is linking back to, was the last episode we were talking about mistakes, or two ago, I guess, because part of the game, high level, it doesn't matter high level or not, but part of the game is making mistakes, right? And that's why I'm just trying to say, like, that is why you go after those cocky players, because when you go after them and then they make a mistake, they have a tough time coping with that, right? And then if you just keep going after them, and then you're compounding errors, right? And then you just see them fall apart. So sorry, I just noticed that, and that's why. Yeah, that's why you go after them.
No, exactly. No, 100%. I think that's why. I think anytime you see any player who's got too much riding on something, like I always say, like sometimes I tell teams to attack. Let's attack the libero, because there's only one player on the court. There's only one player on the court whose job it is to pass. So let's test that libero out. Let's just keep going at them, and then 3-4 serves in, even if they pass dimes, they're going to be like, why do they keep serving? Am I bad? And then maybe the 5 or 6, maybe get free 5 or 6 points because they're like totally shattered over the fact that so I like to do that, because that's the only player, right? Who's like, if they shank, it's like twice as bad as if a left side or any other player passes. So yeah, in terms of the cocky, the arrogant one, they definitely have too much riding on the moment. Yeah, and that brings us nicely, I think, into a point that the idea you mentioned it too, Erik. Like, people need, like, again, there's two things, right? There's two ways to think about mindset. You can think about short-term mindset, like what is your mindset on each point each game. And then there's the macro, the long-term mindset, right? And if you have an eye on the long-term success, then the beauty of that is not a lot in the short term will really throw you off, either positively or negative. The problem, though, is that, like, the tricky thing about mindset is that if you do have that long-term approach, it's easy to fall off and not do the things you need to do as an athlete. Because you're like, oh, volleyball players peak at 28. I'm only 14. I won't work out. You know what I mean? There's an interesting sort of thing where you can mess up what's right in front of you because you have good perspective on the long term, but then that can ruin your short term perspective. So it's an interesting. I always tell people, like, you want to act in the short term with sort of not urgency, but act in the short term. Like
I don't think that's wrong.
Yeah, like if there's no tomorrow, right? Like as long as you're not treating points that way, that's the difference. Because sometimes people, like, you should, another thing is like being grateful. I think that's another one of those things that comes up on social media that people don't really understand. But, I always tell young players, you get to go work out. You have a healthy body. You have a healthy mind.
Yeah.
Like we forget, like, I was watching a documentary during the lockdown about, it was an NFL guy. I think he had ALS. You ever see that one? It was on Prime. It was a big documentary during the first lockdown, I think. And it was this NFL guy who was like the special teams guy. And he was like super energy, super jacked, fast. And here he is now, like, a few years later, and the guy's in a wheelchair. And he can't do the things he used to do.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful documentary about not taking your body for granted and what you can, that urgency of, what, maybe you should not take for granted the fact that you can do these things, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, how many of us wish that we could turn back the clock and do things better?
Yeah.
Right? Not only in terms of, taking care of your body, eating right, sleeping right, just knowing that is the what's needed in order to succeed and to go further.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But you only have one chance.
Yeah. You can make that change tomorrow, though, or
that's right.
Or in the moment, I suppose. Right. So.
Can you sing that for us, Erik?
Anything, just a little.
Make that changed. Make that change.
Did I just say the lyrics of some song?
No. I mean.
But it's hard. Like we all do that.
You can make that change tomorrow. I'm sorry. No.
Because like as much as we all can think of, if we could redo things, we would. But in some ways, you don't want to have that because you don't want to be dwelling on the past, right? Because it's, I don't know. Like, what do you think?
Yep.
Like,
yeah, no, a good point.
Well, but you do want to dwell on the future now. So,
right.
Let me say to any young player out there, do what you can now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Right now.
Not right now.
The ones
after the show.
Right
after the show.
While the show.
But then the now is also differentiates from the future as well, right? Because sometimes you get too caught up in what Zuby's saying, like, oh, I peak when I'm 28, I'm 14 now, I'm chilling, right? It's
a long road.
Yeah, so it's exactly. So it's almost all you have is the moment you're in right now, in a way, right? It's difficult. Like I don't know.
Did you just say all you have is right now?
Yeah.
What do you think, Meach? Is Erik applying for a job at the fortune cookie plant? Erik, what are my lucky numbers today? Don't say it. Don't say it.
Yeah, don't give them away.
Don't say it. No. I know. Wait, that's a good one. That's a good one. Kept it clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that. The problem. I think that. Let's be honest. The problem with most parents, coaches, players today, to bring it right to volleyball, is that they're too concerned with the right now, like what's happening right now, this point, the next 10 points, and they're not understanding that every game you're playing right now, I don't care if it's the championship at the end of your season, is practice. Yeah. Practice with a scoreboard.
Yeah.
You are just practicing. I see parents getting livid over a game in the middle of Timbuktu in a gym. They're like, but this is tier 1. And I'm like, no, it's practice. This is all. That's why they never understood. Like, parents asked me, like I said in one of our earlier episodes, this must be driving you crazy to watch. And I'm like, nope, it's not. This is the part of the process.
Yeah.
There's that word process. You know, people don't trust process enough. They don't understand that process means every part of the process, failing, losing. And if you're worried about the last point or the next point, you're going to give up the next 10 points, and then you're going to give up the whole season. You're going to give up the whole, couple years if you're dwelling too much on things. So the beauty of volleyball for mindset is that it is one and done. And I love that about the sport. I think the sport is tailor-made for mental training. Whenever people talk to me about buying something for mental training, I'm like, you don't need to buy mental training.
Yeah.
You don't need to go take mental training for volleyball. You know why? The game is the mental
There's
training.
Supplements for it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they sell everything, right? They sell everything. And the game is the mental training. The game is one and done. What more do you want? Reset, start again. Like there's no lingering unless you want to make yourself linger. And then next thing you know, you're down 10 points and your whole season's a wash because you can't escape your mind. The game is mental training.
And it's just how much do you want to call the game, right? It's practice and it's game time. We know that. But you can include your training. Like when you're training, as long as you're in there and you're doing that exercise, you can just be telling yourself, this is making me stronger. If you're well, I'm going to talk about whenever Erik is talking to himself, and this is like when I'm working out sometimes.
Okay. I don't know if we want to hear this.
No. Sometimes I'll be sitting there, and then I'll notice my brain it's thinking of getting me out of the gym, and then I'll sit there and ask myself, like, why am I thinking this if I'm down here? What's the whole reason I'm in the gym anyways?
Like, you mean to stop working out?
Yeah, and I'm like, what's the reason why I got into the gym anyways? It's because I want to be stronger and I want to be better. So then I just notice your brain, when you're actually doing the hard things, for whatever reason, your brain or ego, whatever you want to call it, wants to get me out of it as soon as possible. I'm like, why is this thought in here? I'm like, the whole reason why I'm here again is to get stronger. So now I just try to tell myself that when I'm.
Now, is this conversation happening out loud?
Sometimes.
Do you switch positions?
Erik, do you find that it is?
Oh no, the roast, here it comes.
No. This is a real question. I can tell.
Do you find that happens more at the very beginning of a workout, or once you're in it, is it occurring then?
Yeah, it's usually when I'm like 30 or 40 minutes into it or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's the starting for whatever, or I don't know, anywhere from probably 20 minutes onward.
Do you have an easy time getting started?
No, even that's been a hard part for sure. But again, I'm just talking from like recent experience, because lately, over I guess last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been working out lightly, but it's slowly starting to ramp up. And like I just noticed, like, sometimes I'll just be like doing the next exercise, and then my brain is like thinking about dinner and can't wait to be sitting down doing nothing, eating food. I'm like, wait a second, like I'm totally full. I don't need no more food. And then anyways, but I tried it. I like literally told myself, I'm like, the more reps I do, and again, it's got to be quality, the better I'm going to be. I'm not going to feel it tomorrow or the next day or whatever. I'm probably not going to feel it 6 months from now. And again, I'm not going to feel it unless I do this again tomorrow or balanced workout schedule. I can't. Can I work out every day? I don't know. That's a different discussion. And it actually it oddly worked. Weird little self-talk like that.
Yeah, well, that's the cool thing about like the mindset thing, is like we can trick ourselves or push ourselves to do things with thoughts. It's pretty interesting, because we talked about how you can't teach someone something, but I think, like, so one thing that I had a while ago that I thought was pretty cool way to keep yourself locked into workouts was to stop thinking. As I got older, I needed to stop, because I noticed I was only training when I had some volleyball league going on or some tournament or something I was going to do. Competition. And I'm like, well, what am I going to do when I'm 80?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not playing volleyball. Yeah. Or maybe, and some people say, well, you don't have to stop. But the argument is you probably will stop one day. So what I sort of said to myself was like, what if the workout all my life I thought it was a physical thing, but really it was mental training. Like that's a different type of, not in the book, but real mental training. The act of,
that's what it's coming down to.
Well, that's sort of what so if you can start to tell yourself, so what I started telling myself was, wait a minute. So the days that I don't want to go into the gym or I don't want to do the workout, that's the proof that I need to do it more. right? So like,
Yeah.
if this is all mental training. So the more I resist, then the more I need to
Why are you
do
laughing?
it. I'm laughing because it doesn't work. But in theory, it sounds amazing. But no, it does work. I mean, it does work it gets me in on a lot of days that I mean, you guys can clearly tell. But, it's obviously working. I mean,
What?
but anyway, so if you start to think of it as mental training and the suffering of working out, or the, I don't want to do this, that means I got to go do it, because it's not about the lifting of the weight. It maybe isn't even about the physical performance. That's a byproduct of the mental training, the mental act of going in and doing this hard thing I don't want to do.
Yeah.
That's it.
But there's something, like you said, suffering. And again, back to my little crazy self-talk.
It always goes back to Erik.
Yeah, back to me. Because that's something I think I had wrong in my own head. I was telling myself, oh, this needs to be hard. This needs to be difficult. And I'm imagining myself as, Rocky running up the stairs and all this stuff, like hating life.
You do that too, eh?
Of course. But I don't know. I'm starting to think that, of course, it's the hard thing is the hardest thing is probably starting the workout, or especially when you're not feeling it, or if you're getting up at 5 a.m., like that's a huge hard thing or whatever. But so what I'm trying to say is I don't think it needs to be miserable when you're lifting weights. Yeah, it's tough. Like the lactic acid, it's physically hurting your muscles, but then whatever, you rack the weight and then you're not in pain.
No, sorry. When I say that to myself, it's the before. So like that's what gets me
Okay, that's
into
what I'm
the
trying
gym.
to
That's just trying to
distinguish.
get over that hurdle. The other one I use that helps me, and I'd use this with a lot of players and with a lot of my own kids when I'm talking to them. Nobody ever wants to do something until they start.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
so
a
like that nobody gets motivated
Yeah.
to go do something.
Yeah.
Only after starting do you feel like going.
Yeah.
And that's sort of why I use that mental training trick as my way to sort of say, no, that's going to get me in there. And then once you start, it's like Pringles chips.
Exactly.
You can't stop.
And
I agree with that.
I've got actually a great solution for working out and keeping in it. Okay. This isn't always easy, but at the time that you think that you should be working out, see if you can just do it. Like if you're thinking about it, so throw in 10 push-ups. If you're in the kitchen and might need to go to the living room, just throw in a couple of sit-ups and see what you can do right there.
Yeah, I like
instead
this. I like this. Yeah.
Instead of saying, okay, well, I got to get my shorts on, got to get my t-shirt on, got to get my gear, got to prepare to sweat.
Right.
All that takes time when you could be working out.
Yeah.
So if you need to, on occasion, not saying all the time, just work out.
Yeah.
Just do a little something, and you'll see that you're getting into it a lot more often.
That's a good point, because every one of those stops along the way, got to get this gear, that gear. It's one more shot to say, well, I don't feel like doing it. Oh, I don't got any socks, so can't work out without socks.
Yeah, that's right.
It's good, because I do nude jumping jacks in the shower, and
that's not the new jumping jack.
Okay.
But
that's no good.
Association
Yes,
is very good. So let's, for example, like I've had great success with this, is that before every shower, okay, I'm working out. So,
But you only shower you only tell the people, you only shower once a week, so.
But I do it consistently, whether I need it or not. I'm taking that shower.
Meach showers like a cat. He licks himself. Anyway,
But now it's come to the point where I can't go to the shower without thinking of working out.
And then you're creating a habit.
It's creating a habit. It's just
you're associating.
it
shower.
has that association, so that even if it's just 80, 90 push-ups, I don't care. It's quick. I can do that knowing that I've did a little something, and I haven't gone the whole day without performing some type of exercise.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So you just associate it with something that you do once every 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, once every 2-3 weeks. Yes.
No, seriously, is that what you do? Do you do a quick workout before you shower?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Interesting.
50 push-ups before I shower, and it's magic how I think of that every single time. like I as soon as I reach for the tap, it's like I could do.
Do you do them in the washroom?
I've done it there before. I've done stuff on the tub for the triceps, but for the push-ups, I just say, what the heck, let me just do it, and then I feel a lot better about myself.
I don't like. I like where this episode's gone. I just picture Michi running around his bathroom naked, doing all
Players,
sorts of, monkey
trust
bar.
me, and
Jumping jacks.
anybody can do it, because whether it be parents, coaches, players,
Not at the same time. You're not saying that. Not at the same time.
not in a group,
Not in the bathroom. Not in the same bathroom.
no.
Okay,
no,
good,
no.
because that's illegal.
But if you do that association, you can make it a habit, and you can keep it going.
And Meach, you use Irish Spring, I take it, the soap.
How did you know?
No, you just clean as a whistle.
Oh yes,
Clean
a volleyball whistle.
Oh, very good.
Oh.
Clean as a whistle. Oh, the accents are good. I wonder if we lost our accents in that edit. Anyway, okay, so Meach, work out naked before games?
Before showers.
No, but linking up mindset, so you're associating things and how to get started with hard things. That's a good one, yeah.
That's right.
Routine. I still is it counterproductive to do these tricks? In other words, like, is it cheating so let's suppose you make something that's very difficult.
Is creating a routine or a habit counterproductive?
No.
To the mental
If you make something difficult into something easier, is that by definition not helping you? Because that means that you're still going to suffer when it comes to things that you find hard.
No. Plain and simple. No.
Your answer can't be shorter than the question. That's the rule. That's the rule.
I'm going to say I don't know, because I don't think I've ever reached that level of discipline to to provide
right
advice on it.
Yeah, Meach, how often do you fall off on your
On
pre-shower workout?
Well, let me put it in a positive way. I have done
more workouts,
1,000 more push-ups than the other guy, just because I have done that.
You've done that. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so that's a good thing, because you're not beating yourself up over the fact that you skip days and you don't do it sometimes.
That's right.
And you don't want to tell us publicly.
That's right. That's right. So as far as
No,
you
yeah.
guys know, I work out every single day.
He's working out right now.
That's right.
No, but I think that's good though, because there is something there in that mindset right there, that demo, that the idea that he's not going to beat himself up over not doing these things. He's going to instead think positively about all the extra times he has done it. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There was a interesting quote that I heard. Was I think it was John Tesh was mentioning it.
John Tesh, the host of Entertainment Tonight and the musician,
and CHFI,
the famous musician.
Yes.
Who wrote the NBA on NBC theme song?
Oh, didn't know.
Do you know that? No.
No.
Yeah, you know that.
You done cutting him off, Zuby?
Yes. Benjamin Franklin said.
Benjamin Franklin
said.
I thought you said it was John Tesh.
No, that he was quoting Benjamin Franklin.
So you
had you not interrupted.
So you were attributing why didn't you just say Benjamin Franklin said? Why did you throw John Tesh in? You make me sing. You made me hum that lyric that now all of America and the world can't get out of their heads because I sang it so well.
That's because I wanted to hear you hum a little ditty. Do it again.
I don't know how it ends because the broadcasters always
You have to keep going higher.
No,
You have to go higher.
I'm bleeding all over the microphone. Anyway, Sorry.
So John
Tesh said
John
Benjamin
Tesh
Franklin
was
said-
quoting
And who was Benjamin Franklin?
Benjamin Franklin.
Bill Gates.
What Benjamin Franklin always said to himself, in attributing to his success, is saying that, what am I going to do today? Okay, that's what he would say in the morning. In the evening, he would say, what have I done today? So that kind of falls in that philosophy where if you say, what am I going to do today? You can at least have a goal set and then complete it and then be able to reflect on it in the evening.
Yeah, it sounds like a good way to make sure that you've done something meaningful every day to
That's
you
right.
in that
That's
day.
right.
And I guess, would he beat himself up at the end of the day if he didn't feel he did enough, though?
Well, I guess if you've got that mindset of saying, what am I going to do today? It's more likely that you're going to accomplish it, and then you don't have the regrets.
Or something, anyway.
Yes,
It doesn't have to be that,
that's
but
right.
something, yeah. It's interesting. Regrets are fascinating because I find that they're, they're not productive, that's for sure. And they also
Really not good.
Well,
yeah.
Eric, you and I have talked about this too. Like,
I beat myself up all the time.
yes, there's sometimes Eric will beat himself up for taking breaks or checking out mentally,
Right.
or doing too much, like, whatever, gaming or
Yeah.
online stuff. And I always say to you that,
Online stuff. Right?
like browsing for naked animals and things like that. Eric's big into naked animal. Actually, it'd be worse if
Isn't
you.
every animal
Yeah,
naked?
yeah, it's true. It'd be worse if you were into fully clothed animals. That would be that's the worst. Fullyclothedanimal.com. Anyway, no, but Eric. So I would tell. Remember, again, if you haven't seen other episodes, I am Eric's guru. Yeah, professional life coach. But I would tell Eric that we always come to things. A lot of people sit around and they'll like sit and watch TV all day, or they'll watch movies all day, or be online or something. And I always tell people that there's a reason why you've done that, right? Like, you mentally, physically, something is up. I beat myself up too. Like, if I haven't done something in a day, I get pretty grumpy if I haven't done something productive.
Yeah.
But I try to remind myself that doing nothing is productive, right? Doing nothing sometimes is productive. Your brain needs a break. Your body might need a break. So, like, sort of to Meach's point about not beating himself up if he doesn't do his pre-shower stretching routine, nude stretching routine, then there's a reason why you do that. Now, there's obviously a point where you have to do something, change it up and be physical if you're doing something that's not physical, or do something mental if you've been doing something too physical. But I think it's an important thing that people need to understand, that sometimes doing nothing or less of something, or not whatever your mind, like, doing nothing is a good thing. I think that's, and it's not like, touchy feely, like, oh, we're all okay and everybody needs to do things in their own time. It's more really just a legit, like in your case,
Decompressing.
well, yeah, we all do a lot. I mean, even doing this is quite a bit of a commitment too, right? But if there's a day where we're not doing something, that's part of our culture, a bad part of our culture, that meditation and thinking and reflection and pausing is looked down upon. And even Benjamin Franklin was one of those guys that contributed to our culture of being this super fast paced, got to do more all the time with every minute of the day, and early bird gets the worm. I think that was him too, right?
Who's the other? Edison was the other, like.
Well, lots of
yeah.
guys. Yeah, even a lot of founding fathers, United States and Europe, and Enlightenment thinkers. A lot of them were focused on productivity, and that's sort of where we are today. But I think the ultimate, like, to bring it back to mindset, I think the idea is, like, you have to have a sense of forgiveness built in to your mindset, which helps on the court, by the way, right?
For sure.
Understanding that everybody makes mistakes, and if it's not you this point, it will be you the next point, and if it's not you, it'll be the next player. So, and then two, that there needs to be something built in where you're accountable for your performance. So it's a fine line between those two, where you don't want to beat yourself up, but you also want to understand that you might be wanting results without the work. And that's something that people want more and more in our society, right? A lot of people want to have the fancy car, the fancy house, or to be the best player on the team, and they're not willing to put in the work.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. That's the problem, I think, of today. That's the greatest challenge for young players today, is that they're not putting in the work, and they think they think being competitive means getting angry when you lose.
Yeah.
That's another one.
Celebrating super hard.
Coaches, parents, and players, I see them, they think they're very competitive people, but they think that means because they kick a chair when they lose, or they yell at their teammates, or they yell at their players. That's not what competitive means. Competitive means a high level of accountability on you, but not crossing into the toxic beat myself up. You want to put accountability on you to the point where you're going to work your ass off before the next game or whatever. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Or during that particular play, it can be that too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Are you going for it? Are you making every single effort to get the ball, to do what you can for your team while you can? Yeah,
and I find, what's funny about that is as I get older and I still play, like Meach and I just played a playoff fairly recently in a rec league, and competitive final, but it was rec.
Championship of the world.
Championship of the world. And as I get older, the big thing for me is that the whole idea of deciding, to do something, I have to consciously tell myself to no, stop thinking in your head that you're not going to get that ball. Because then you're sitting there doing, and you've done it 3 times while the ball's still in the air. Yeah. So as you get older, because the whole thing about getting older is your mind knows what to do, but your body just doesn't go. So I consciously, and I think young players can do this too. If you decide that nothing is hitting the ground,
oh man,
even at this age, it still makes you go for stuff, and people are shocked because they haven't seen you move in 3 weeks. But
that's right.
They're like, "Oh, you're passing today?" Yes, I am. I had decided I was going to. But young players too, making decisions to go for things is a very powerful thing, and it ties in with the workouts too, because the whole idea, a lot of people talk about this too. Just make the decision, that you are a runner, that you are a workout person or a volleyball player. Once you decide, then there's no thinking the next morning,
especially when it comes to like even a little thing as being a serve, being let's say like tip versus spike. If you've got that mindset, I don't care what happens next on the court, whether it be a spike, a tip, or a dig you have to make. If you're there mentally ahead of time, then you're better than just reacting
and thinking in the moment.
In the moment,
because fear, right? Like if you think in the moment, then you are your thought invariably is gonna go to, I'm afraid of messing up. So you just gotta, like I always tell players, like just this, if you go for that practice mentality, if the set's there, like we talked about this in another episode, crank it. If there's a big block there and you know it, then tip it, right? But the idea is to just play loose. And again, this is where preparation comes in. Yeah, because we've talked about this too, right? The more prep you do, those extra things. Remember we talked about at the top of the show, like those players who do extra. I hope that didn't get edited out, but the editing. Remember we talked about the extra things that athletes do, high level athletes do, when they know nobody else is doing it, and that's the edge. Was that that was recent? That was after, right? The cut?
I don't know. Anyway, we had technical difficulties earlier.
Well, I think we were talking because like Ollie, the boxers, right, and pro athletes.
I think we talked about it,
Yeah, I think that was in the show. So those extra things, the more prep you do, I find the more ready you feel in the game, and the more free you are to play without fear.
I think that's a very important distinction to make, to add on to what you guys said earlier, which is to decide. Because if when you guys are 65 or whatever and you're playing rec volleyball still, and if you're not
competitive volleyball,
I don't care.
Yes, competitive.
I don't care if
championship
you have
of
decided
the world.
to dig the ball, but if you guys like aren't doing any like exercise at that point, you're literally not going to be that fast, right?
I mean, I see it as a point, even if I have to start moving before the play, like weeks ahead to get the ball, I will be there.
Yeah.
And if I get really fat, I'm going to cover more court. So
There's an advantage to that.
Yeah, I play. I'm sure by the time I'm 65, I'll be playing starfish defense. You know,
Starfish?
face down, hoping the ball hits me in the ass. Body pancake.
That's right. Taking up area.
Yeah, taking up space.
That's right.
Like, that guy is so fat with a PH. And no, I think that's the goal, is to get as big as possible. So anyway, no, but you're right. The idea of what were you saying? That
well, it's just like you're talking about the preparation is key, but deciding like before the play that you're going to dig the ball. Obviously, you can't be sitting in your mind watching the play, telling yourself, "I'm going to dig the ball. I'm going to dig the ball," because then you're not. And because then you also said play loose. Play loose is also important because it means you need to just be in the zone. Your mind has to be open. To be able to see what's going on.
Yeah, I don't mean decide on every play.
I know, yeah.
No, I mean decide blanket. Tonight,
exactly, yeah.
every ball is up.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to hesitate. And I'm not going to. And that helps as you get older. And I think that helps when you're very young.
Yeah.
You know? It's the circle of life.
Because you can't be caught thinking.
Anybody gonna? I was waiting for someone to start.
I was just waiting for you to say something. Yeah.
No, you don't go right to the chorus, Eric. You start with "From the day
Oh.
we arrived."
What about
on the planet."
Oh no, that's the wrong song.
That's a different song.
Oh.
You're ruining it now.
Lion King?
It's the circle of Lion King. Yeah, it's the right movie.
Yeah,
Right movie.
okay.
Yeah. You just ruined my solo.
So like 90, 95?
Now, thanks to you, nobody gets to hear me sing Elton John. Way to go.
And edit.
From the
That's
day
the right point.
we arrived. Hakuna Matata. Hey, Hakuna Matata actually is a good mindset thing, by the way. It means no worries for the rest of your day. It's our problem-free
Do you
philosophy.
think that's what Karch Karai was saying when he was doing 500 block jumps? Hakuna Matata, Hakuna Matata.
I don't think that's what he was thinking.
You have personal knowledge. That's what he was saying.
I was the one singing it on the sideline.
I like how we're
I was
talking.
-2.
We've talked about a bunch of like pro players because I think it's hard to teach mindset. Like you can't. I don't think you can read a book and just absorb mindset. I think
No.
Uh,
I think you can, but I don't think it's the books that people sell. You know what I mean? Like I see things like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Write down your volleyball goals. And I'm going to tell you right now, the more you fixate on a long-term goal, like I want to be a pro player, that's not the goal. Because that's, you know why the problem with setting that goal is that every mistake you make along the way is going to feel like a disaster. What you set as a goal is a little more immediate, a little more in your control right now. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get better at that. I'm going to work on this. The going pro takes care of itself.
Yeah, because you can't measure it or have any accountability. How am I doing 6 months in?
You're going to look like a
almost
nightmare.
pro? No.
It's going to be a nightmare. You're going to just be distraught. People who set their goals unrealistically high, with it's not only that, it also, by the way, setting goals. So just in the business world too, I know it's so unfashionable to tell people don't write down a long-term goal, but here's the problem with goals. Like if you write a 5-year plan, the problem with that is that you are robbing yourself of all those interesting things that pop up that might pull you in a better or different direction. So let's suppose my goal is to be a middle blocker. Okay. And that's it. I want to be a professional middle blocker. And then I'm noticing that people are saying that, wow, you set really well. Nope. I'm a middle blocker.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we have this setting camp coming up, and we really think you should go. Nah, plan says middle blocker. Read this, and so that's a good metaphor for business plans, everything else. Where if you don't open yourself up to what I don't want to say the universe is telling you, but to
Say it.
What the universe is telling you. If you don't open yourself up to new opportunities or changes in you as a person or your business or your athletic career, then you are robbing yourself of those opportunities. And that's what you're trapping yourself by writing a plan. So I always tell people, focus on immediate goals. Don't set this far off goal of I want to be a pro player. If you do, keep that in the back of your mind. I wouldn't say put it out there everywhere, because one, you sound like a crazy person, and two, it sounds like you're focusing on the wrong things. It's like opening a business and saying, I'm going to be the next Google. Yeah. Just file that away. Why don't you just work on, showing up to work every day?
Is it true Serena said she wanted to be a pro? I don't know what age.
I think it's true. It's true that a lot. So here's the thing.
But again, she was already well underway.
And it doesn't mean. See, the problem with that talk is that a lot of people say that stuff, and so the person sitting at home says, Mommy, I want to be a pro, and then they're like, okay, what now? I'm going to go play with my toys. Yeah. Right? Whereas Serena was saying it while she was
already busting her butt at whatever age.
Yeah. Or she was prepared to do that. That's the myth of that whole idea of setting that goal. And a lot of people, again, see, it matters who says this stuff to you. Yeah. So when I see coaches tell people, all right, set that goal. And, you look at the coach's life and they're not. I mean, it sounds all mean. No, it's not mean. I know. It's not mean. It's true. Like, it matters what they're doing or what they've accomplished in their own world. I think we talked about the ice cream salesperson giving you stock advice. Like, unless you own this ice cream store, but it matters who says it. So, you can't tell. So I have all sorts of jokes about this, but people telling you to dream big and follow your dreams. And you're looking, and then you're like, but you're in a prison cell, Uncle Jake. Yeah, but what a cell. Anyway, it's the best. It's a corner cell.
I'm living in my best cell.
I'm being my best self. Okay. Anyway, terrible. It matters who says it though. So, and that's why I have a problem when I see these lofty goals without what that work is. Like, they're not doing the work. You know what? The other thing is, people who are running around telling people these lofty goals, they shouldn't have time to sit around telling you these lofty goals. Right. They should be too busy. They're not on social media posting about it. They're too busy in the gym. The ones posting about it have all the spare time in the world, right? Like us. Maybe we should cancel this podcast. Let's all hit the gym.
All right. That's right. What are we doing?
No, this is actually difficult. What we're doing. This is actually doing the work that a lot of people don't do, I think, right? Like, that's one thing we told ourselves when we were starting this whole idea of, sort of getting on a mission to spread the gospel of volleyballogy, was to volleyballology. Well, we didn't want to quit, right? We didn't want to be that story of like, oh wow, these episodes were good. How old are they? Oh, 4 years ago. they stopped after episode 4. Mark this down. This is episode 4. So this is it. All we got to do is get to 5.
That's right.
Just one more.
We're laughing,
but
we're laughing, but we'll go back and look 3 years from now, and this will be the.
What were we thinking?
So much work.
We wasted so much time.
Well, we do have mindset problems, even here, right? Like, we have to keep reminding ourselves to keep doing it. It's tricky to get together to do this. We all have lives. Yeah. And we said we don't want to make that mistake. There's a mindset thing involved here that we are, I think, modeling a little bit, because again, these are long conversations about interesting topics that nobody else is having. Very interesting topics. Very. You're getting sleepy.
You're believing everything you hear.
This show is amazing. If they're watching this, it looks
fantastic content.
Meach has been saying that at a very high speed this entire episode. You can't stop listening. You're getting more interested the further we go. This is so dumb.
I need to reel you guys back in.
Yes, listen.
Oh my gosh.
What do you think about Kaizen?
Oh, he's awesome.
Kaizen.
Yeah.
Kaizen Sose?
No, I think Kaizen, the philosophy. I think it was came into, I don't know when it came, maybe it's an ancient Japanese philosophy, but it mostly became well known post World War when Japanese economy needed to rebuild, right? And they were losers of a war, so I'm sure they were very much in a difficult position, right? But then all of a sudden we're going into this industrial era, vehicles and all this stuff, and then what ended up happening is the Japanese ended up becoming a huge powerhouse in automotive technology and advancement. They were really well known for making incredible, powerful fuel economic engines that were like tiny, right? And so they actually ended up being some of the best in the early days in the 60s of superbike and like sport bike. Suzuki's were the best. They were tiny little 50 cc or whatever. They revved up to like 17,000 RPMs. They sound like sewing machines. Mm-hmm. But that's a spin-off from all of the research and development that they did into small engines. And basically they were forced to make do with what they had, so they could only make small engines. Anyway, so these companies like Toyota and them early on became powerhouses, and I think the CEOs at the time went back, and I guess when they're asked about it, and they talked about employing Kaizen into their business philosophy. And Kaizen, I forget, I was reading about it the other day, but the first two, it's based on 3 or 4 or 5 pillars, I forget. The first one being efficiency. But I think the overall thing, and the crudest way to understand it, is that you improve slightly more each day. But I think there's a lot more to it than that. But I think that's the bare bones way of looking at it, right? But I think the first pillar had to do with efficiency and just operating as efficiently as possible, and like getting rid of. And then the second pillar gets into I think they called it housekeeping. And that gets into something that aids efficiency. So making sure you get rid of the waste of raw materials and stuff, and then you have a clean workspace, and then again, that allows you to just focus on the task at hand and then build and improve. But there's a few more pillars. I didn't end up reading all of them, but it's an interesting philosophy, because I think that's still something where we see it's still going on. I mean, Japan is a rather very interesting country, right? They have some of the longest living people. Their culture is very unique.
Yes.
And they have an incredible volleyball program.
Yeah, sure.
Amazing automotive for such a small country, right? But yeah, so what do you guys think about Kaizen?
Yeah, I don't really like it.
Oh.
Next. No.
No, thank you for bringing that.
No, that was cool. Yeah. No, I think that the Japanese culture has always had, a very interesting perspective. I always wondered about, because I always see Japan as very philosophical, long-term thinking society. Yeah. Right? They're more methodical in their growth and planning.
I guess
I sometimes wonder if when I see them so capitalistic, Japan embraced capitalism at the end of World War II, and I wonder, I go back and forth. Does that mean that they were a conquered society, or does that mean that they're just better at it? Were they brought this culture? Because one of my favorite plays.
Well, what else could they have become other than a capitalist society, though?
Well,
communism.
Yeah,
they weren't.
Well,
back to dynasty,
Yeah, I just mean that you are this country that was bombed by the United States, and then you have this culture that just embraced capitalism. And I don't know if capitalism is a fascinating thing, because it can be used to help a lot of people too, but it can also be at the heart, when we talked about this earlier too, with some of these mindset issues that people have, is that wanting the glory, wanting fame, fortune, without knowing what it takes, without doing the work, I think is something associated with a capitalist sort of not capitalism in its purest form, but capitalism in its sort of unfettered, uncontrolled form. I think there's a lot of things in our culture where players, young players growing up, I think what we're seeing is a social media reflection that's creating a lot of the toxicity in sports.
They're expecting to be somewhat of a star and stand out in their sport.
Fame,
and then
right?
It doesn't happen.
Yeah, fame. It's been a steady climb towards desiring fame and power and wealth and money over the last 50, 60, 70, 80 years of society, post-World War II. I mean, it's funny you mentioned Japan because I did want to bring up one of my favorite plays is called Tea House of the August Moon. I think I told you about this, Eric, right?
Yeah.
And it's about Japan, Okinawa actually, which is off the coast of Japan, and how it was conquered at the end of World War II by the United States. And it's all about the military occupation of Okinawa. And one of the best lines from that play, because somebody asked them how the Okinawans in the play. It's a comedy, by the way, and it was a famous a movie was made about it with Marlon Brando playing a main Japanese character. Today, racist by today's standard. Yeah, Marlon Brando plays Sakini, Sakini is this Okinawan translator, and he does it very well.
Yeah.
He does it very well, but today it would be considered racist because he's not Okinawan.
Yeah.
Right? But he in the play they ask the Okinawans, the Americans, because some of them were very in the play. It's very good because it shows Americans sympathetic to the loss of the Okinawan culture and how America was bringing its machines and its sort of capitalism to their world. And they said, "How do you guys remain so strong of a culture? Because they've been conquered by so many people throughout history." Mm-hmm. And this old man says to the American general, who's in the camp or whatever, he says. Pain makes man think, thought makes man wise, and wisdom makes life endurable. So pain makes man think, thought makes man wise, and wisdom makes life endurable. And it's such a profound quote that just stuck in my head because it's kind of what we're talking about here too, a little bit about perspective on things and the training and putting ourselves into suffering mode a little bit. As a way of gaining that wisdom of life that, sort of, you look at every elderly person in society and our society kind of shoves them off and we don't really revere elders the way other cultures do. Yeah. But there's a lot of wisdom in that idea that, the hard things that happen to you through life or the hard things that you put yourselves into leads to a better perspective, right? And athletes, I think that the more hard things, we already talked about Kobe and Michael Jordan off the top, like what were their circumstances? What was their hard? Yeah. Did they have easy lives or not? How did they get that perspective that they had, right?
Yeah, and Zuby, didn't you feel that when we'd come to, playing the volleyball weekly, that if you came on the day where you felt that you didn't do what you needed to do, that's the first thing that you think of. Like, in this case, it was the beach. Yep. You think, oh boy, I'm not having the cardio that I need to because I didn't work for it. Yep. I didn't do the squats.
That's the first thing you think of, eh?
Yeah, that's the first thing you think of when you start to hit the court. Even
didn't suffer
at the
enough.
Beginning of the stuff, you didn't suffer enough. But when you had those times where, I worked out, I can kind of show the scars and I can kind of feel the tension in the legs because I did that. You feel like you did everything that you could,
and you play better.
And you play better knowing that you're prepared.
Mistakes don't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you don't know, is it I don't think it's psychosomatic either. I don't think it's just a head trick. Do you?
I often think you're psycho, but
me? Me specific? Because you're talking about me, right? Yeah. Because Meach always asks me.
I kind of like that.
Yeah, Meach always asks me, "Did you work out today, or did you work out this week?" Because he knows I'm frustrated with how I'm playing or something.
Right.
But no, it's true for me. For me, it's not. I honestly don't think it's psychosomatic. I think I mean, of course, the suffering is a part of it, but there's also real differences in how I feel, like how loose I can play.
That's right.
So the suffering. It's also like, it's kind of interesting because if the suffering, like let's suppose the match is difficult, right? You're young, you're old, whatever. The match is going to be difficult. It's going to be long. It's going to be tiring. If you've put yourself through it already in the week, and this is why people wake up at 4 a.m. and work out, right? Because they want to it gives the rest of your life perspective. Like, let's face it, in our modern world, there's not much real suffering going on. I mean, I shouldn't say there's suffering, but you know what I mean? Like, with all our conveniences, we have to replicate
not the way that we're
suffering.
Genetically used to. Not like famine and like
like someone could come kill. Death, violence, right?
Animals
like
hunting us.
Yeah.
No internet.
What? Airplane?
Bite your tongue. No, but that's the thing. Like
Yeah.
these conveniences are softening us and not making us aware of real dangers, right?
Yep.
And so putting yourself in that workout, for me, it literally is making my body ready to handle stuff physically better because it's been through stress.
Wasn't that part of the philosophy behind the benefit of sprinting? Because you're actually activating some of those genetics, genes or whatever, where we used to use to hunt our meal or run from something trying to eat us, right? I think that's remember Mark's Daily Apple, Mark Sisson. He was that crazy ultra marathon guy who ended up going like changed his diet completely, but he's talking about like activating genes and stuff, and that's one of the benefits of sprints.
Very good.
Yeah, it's the stress that you put your body under, right?
Well, and that's a lot of, I think, remember how we were talking about, we want to do things that people have proof of doing, right? So like when it comes to burning calories or something, but a lot of people have been saying it's how beneficial it is to just lift something heavy, not only just for, I think not only for men, but for men and women, but in terms of like living a long life. And then I think it reduces causes from like all mortalities, something by some crazy amount, just by lifting something heavy. I think it's like twice a week or something, right? And then the same thing goes true for like walking or just getting steps in, right?
Yep.
Not only will you like lose weight, but it's like it'll just show like death from all mortality is like drops significantly if you're doing, I think, just 10,000 steps or even 5,000, which isn't even a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting because when we cross into data tracking, I always get...
Yeah, that's the problem.
I think that's a weird thing where I hear these studies and I'm like, are you just trying to sell me an Apple Watch?
And every study, you have to include so many other correlations to it, right? Like even if you're talking about a beneficial food, but you don't know the health status, like there's like that's why you have
too many variables.
Yeah,
too many variables, and everybody likes to put it on their thing. And that's what's
lost. That's what's lost nowadays is that these all of a sudden a study's out and it's like, oh, automatic, we believe it because it's no. Like there's so many more, variables. Again,
the world runs with I wrote a little bit about this.
Doctor said this.
Well, data is a problem, right? Like in terms of a lot of this mindset stuff too, like whether it's training mindset, anything. Our brains are still in reptile mode. Like we're still, our technology is moving very fast and we can accumulate data and numbers about everything. Yeah. And if the latest thing, like our minds aren't able to keep up with this data, right? And we're going to do a whole show on data and statistics too, right? Because there's a real problem with how people interpret data. And anybody who studies stats will tell you, don't ever draw a conclusion from a statistic. But what do? We take a statistic and go, and we run with it. So, but getting back to it, the mental training side of it, I think that the bottom line, whether it's like, whatever the noise is around, lifting or how many steps and all of that stuff. I think the bottom line is that you got to do, like, we aren't doing a lot of hard things. And what's happening there is it's causing us to lose perspective, I think, on little things.
Yeah. We got to be careful not to have everything be easy. It feels good at the time. It's nice, but there's no challenge from everything being easy. And
I think it makes you lose perspective. Like this is why athletes, I think, suffer. Like I see kids overreact. I see coaches, I see parents overreact because they're not, if that's the thing about it, their kid losing a volleyball game or that player losing a volleyball game or their team losing a volleyball game is the worst thing that happens to them in the world. Think about that. Like you don't want your world to be built up on every single point, every single match. Because if that's your world, then that means that you don't have enough hard in your life. If that's your thing, right? Yes. If that's your big catastrophe.
That's why one thing coaches can try to do is make your practice more intense than
that's why it works. Yeah, that's why it works. If your practices aren't the worst part of your day,
which is another reason why.
I don't mean worst part. But if there's not a lot of challenge in that practice, then the games will never feel easy. It's all building perspective.
Which is why you want to build up a strong bench, or you don't even want to necessarily call them on the bench, but you want to build up a strong bench. That way you can have scrims, right? Because that was one of the best parts of our practice is when B side gets to fight the starters or whatever, right? And then you switch like one player, like one B-side player goes on the right.
Yes.
You pull a starter, and then you get so amped up to knock them off, right? That's and then that's some of the best practice moments I've had, anyways.
Yeah, and you probably had the right mindset, and the players on that team, different time, different era, had a different mindset. They didn't look at the other side and go, "We'll never beat them." They looked at the other side and said, "Oh, we're gonna try our best."
Oh yeah,
but that's because you were raised in a different time too, right? Like, not to crap on kids today or the generation, but it's very challenging for kids today. If you can scroll through your screen and find and watch anything you want, and change it if you don't like it, and then go downstairs and open the fridge and pull out any food you want, and then go and do anything you want, or have your parents do everything for you. Like, when we talked about this in the parents episode, the more your parents do for you, the less perspective you have as a person, and the less self-esteem you're able to build, which is also connected with, not collapsing after every point lost, right? That's a self-esteem thing, right?
So especially when they're all watching you, like the parents are all sitting around, and it's like strangers,
and the weird cheering. The weird cheering.
That's not just girls volleyball, that's guys volleyball too.
Oh, everybody.
I was reffing girls volleyball. I was like, oh, this is so loud in here, man.
I've seen parents, like, just going into mindset problems. I've seen parents heckle like 13-year-old kids.
Brutal.
Like,
That's wrong.
Yeah, it's very weird. My daughter was going up to spin serve at provincials once, and some parent in the crowd started jeering in her toss, like, whoa! I'm like, these are not. And we're on some Facebook groups. I just read a post where parents were swearing at and yelling at kids on opposing teams, like taunting them, like they're pro athletes, criticizing them.
Yeah.
Opposing teams. Can you imagine this?
Yeah, that's something that can be done. Professionals are used to that. They're
adults.
They're adults. So they have a different focus. But I mean, for like a 13-year-old, 14-year-old that's just coming into experiencing what the game is, you could literally ruin a superstar because it's too young to be doing that.
Yeah,
it's too young to be doing anything like that.
It just speaks to the damage of the adult. Like, could you imagine being that adult? Like, that adult doesn't have enough perspective in their life. Like, they're passing that mindset on to their kids.
Heckling up for it. I can't.
Yeah, heckling kids, taunting them. Like, it's almost like almost sounds like a comedy sketch in a movie or something. Like, yeah, I don't know.
That shouldn't even.
What if like they divorced and it was actually like his kid or something?
What's that?
What if they were like divorced and it was like his kid? Or
No. It was definitely just no, because I've seen it happen.
That's not funny.
I've seen it even worse. No.
Heckle your own kid on a different team.
Yeah, that's because you chose to live with mom. Anyway, that's not too far.
Damage.
This is not good. Not good.
What
else do we have here?
I didn't say anything on this, but
yes,
isn't the story of Buddha all about how he, the Bodhisattva, I forget, isn't it like he was a prince or something, and he grew up in a palace, and then he like got out of the palace one day, and the first thing he saw was like an old person. I think he saw a dead animal or something. He saw an old person like suffering, weakness, and then he saw someone starving or something. And then, anyways, he went back to the palace, but then after that he chose to live life outside of it afterwards because he wanted to be in life and be around suffering. And then, a huge part of the Buddhist, I guess you call it religion or way of life, is a lot of it is based off of suffering and how you
existence is suffering.
That
is the line.
Yeah, that's right.
That is the central belief of Buddhism. Existence is suffering.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe they take it too far. I don't think so. They're very.
It turned into a whole
religion. Eric's going to disparage
if you go too far into it.
Religion. Yeah. No. So quote from Erik. I don't know if they got too far into it. But, cue the Buddhist. We just lost the Buddhist market.
They're all monks though, right?
They're all Erik. I don't think I don't think we're qualified to talk about what
No,
all Buddhists.
I'm wrong. Not every Buddhist is a monk. Because you can be a Buddhist and not be a monk. All right, I'm very sorry.
Each of us gets one edit
I
to
am
show.
very sorry.
I know
I
what he's gonna
screwed that up big
Yeah.
time.
What's the old thing about don't talk about religion?
I'm even the one who went to what do you call it?
Silent retreat.
Yeah.
No, I know. Yeah.
She was
No,
Buddhist.
I taught philosophy, so Buddhism comes up quite a bit. Yeah, existence is suffering. I mean, nirvana is the highest, point of consciousness in Buddhist religion. No, it's not just a rock band, folks. And but I mean, the central idea. I mean, existence is suffering is sort of central to what we're talking about here, right? And these ancient philosophies are around, and success.
You probably can't tell it to a 14-year-old. It's a very heavy way to.
Well, no. So what it means really is that, once you understand that life and existence is suffering, then you stop expecting rainbows everywhere. It's sort of what we're talking about.
Yeah, but is that the way you would say it to a young athlete or a young person? In
Well,
general?
as long as you
your life is suffering.
well, it's sort of like
I think you would just say life is difficult. There are, you would take the opportunity and when something difficult happens or something painful, that's the opportunity to then, I don't know,
To grow.
Yeah. Again, I don't have kids or whatever, but to be there supporting for them. And then you would somehow plan for the next time it happens. It's like, hey, this will happen again. However, look at how this has just happened to you. You're getting over, you will get over it. And then you even the next day you'll be like, hey, remember yesterday with that really crappy thing that happened? And they'll be like, oh yeah. And then, but now look at you now. And so you get back up. It's just a natural thing. Whether I'm sure that in life some blows are so heavy that you have to consciously will yourself to get up, I'm sure. But I think it's a natural human part of our tenacity that we can get up and fight and keep going, right? So
yeah, I don't think it's a way of putting it down on thing. I think the idea that is helpful in that philosophy is that if people believe that every day is amazing and life is amazing, then I think they're more set up for failure and heartbreak and disappointment and
it's
sadness.
more difficult to cope.
Yeah,
because
with
there's
everything
no coping.
being easy.
I think it's more of a
when something hits you, you're less prepared if you haven't had to cope with anything.
Yeah, and if you approach things with the mindset that existence is suffering, then you're more
aware.
More happy in the joys and the good things. Versus and prepared for the trials and tribulations versus it's again shifting perspective. It's kind of like what we're talking about here again, just the person that puts themselves in hardness and difficult things more often will like you said, that if the practice is the hardest part of the day and is the most difficult thing, then the game is a joy. The game is easy. The game it's just a flow state. Whereas if you don't do that, if you act like the practice is the fun, the easy, the relaxed, then the game becomes tension. The game becomes stress. The game becomes a nightmare.
The game will slap you, not the coach.
Game. Yeah, exactly. So I think that's what it is. People don't understand when they hear the existence of suffering. They think it means that life is doom and gloom. And I remember teaching classes about this, and that's not it's just a shift in your mindset, not in the realities of the world.
That's what I was trying to get at. Is that there's a huge amount of positive, right? It's just it's by saying that one phrase, life is suffering.
Erik, I just cleaned up the mess you made for all the Buddhists out there.
You're right.
Just kidding.
Hey, I just remember.
No, you actually brought up a cool topic because it relates to exactly what we're talking about.
Right.
Sorry.
GSP, George St. Pierre, his coach even was talking about that leading up to one of his title fights or whatever. He's like, I needed to plan the training sessions with George in such a way that it couldn't be too easy. Right. But I had to make it difficult enough, but not too difficult, because if I beat him up too much physically physically, then he's going to be too gassed. He's going to be disinterested in tomorrow's workout, because they would train every day. Right. But if it's too soft, then it's not engaging enough. And then if it's too soft and I send him into a title fight, he's going to get hurt or he's going to lose or something. Right. So I think that there's a huge part of that for that coach's job was to mold each training session to be difficult enough And he had a funny story, but like George actually, he thinks he got a partial concussion in one of the training, like 2 weeks before a title fight or something, right? Boy. Like, but they were doing they're doing a 4-round sparring session, and he's pretty sure he got a concussion, and then he was gonna call it, right? They were going into the 5th round of this training one, and then George is like, oh, like, coach, I'm good. Like, let's do, because he wanted to see, like, George, you all right? Like, we'll end it right here, right? And then George's like, no, I'm good. So the guy had to make a call. He's like,
risk the whole fight.
But he's like, if I can it now, then what is that going to do to George's self-esteem, right? Going in this title fight. But if I put him in, so what he ended up
probably
doing,
just took a big shot too, right? That's the other thing too.
Yeah, like, exactly. Yeah. And now he's hurt, right? And he's going to go into a fight. But what he decided to do, he's like, okay, George, we'll do the last round. And he started, he's walking by George's competitor, and he said, whispers to him, don't lay a glove on him, right? And so he just let George maul him, right? And then the round finishes, and George is like, oh, like, you see, coach, like, I really got beat up in 4th round, but I came out strong in the 5th, and like I felt really good. Anyways, so goes on, like, he goes into the title fight and he wins the title fight 2 weeks later, right? And
he didn't know that the coach said that.
I think no, he didn't. But maybe afterwards. So, but again, that's a different sport.
That's interesting. Yeah. No, and that's interesting because that's a tricky one.
Yeah,
right?
That's a tricky one. There was
No, but I think you raised something very important here that I think we can't leave this episode without talking about. We're talking about doing hard things, and to some people listening, that might mean go for it. Go work hard, work as hard as possible, break my body. Or if you're a coach, I'm going to break this team. I'm going to make them do hard things. Not that anybody's listening to our advice, but some coaches walk away from watching, a Jordan or a Kobe documentary, and they think, all right, these kids are dead, But the idea is, and there's another interesting philosophy that you bring up that made me think of the idea that is less more, right? Like, so one of the things in the Facebook groups that we're seeing a lot is some people are talking about how kids are playing too much, right? Kids are playing and practicing way too much these days. And, the idea that, I don't know, Meach, you probably never saw this, but Erik and I talked about this before too, where there is a trainer, a well-known MMA trainer, a wrestling trainer or MMA trainer.
This is the guy I'm talking about. He was George's coach.
Oh, that guy. Yeah, okay, because he has the philosophy that's fascinating. It sort of blew my mind when I heard it. He was talking about the Russian wrestling team, okay? And they do light sparring 7 days a week, like for 1 hour, nothing rigorous at all, okay? And versus the American wrestling team, where they would go 3 or 4 days hard every week, and then there's a bunch of recovery days built in. And he talks about the 4-year span between Olympics. And if you add up what the Russians are doing with that light sparring, they're never sore the next day, so they can go every day. And you total up the hours on the mat in between Olympics, and it's night and day, and it's so easy to see why the Russian wrestlers dominate the American wrestlers, because they don't work out to exhaustion. He said if you leave the gym sore the next day, then you're working out wrong. He said, because then you can do, and I tried this for a little while, fairly recently. I tried to go every day, lighter weights, where I could hit multiple, even the same body part, maybe a couple days in a row. Like, that's sort of unheard of, but just if you do almost very lightweight, high rep, not too much to burn out the muscle. Yeah. And I felt great. And I, won a championship this summer. But
which championship?
Oh, didn't I mention it? It's the world championship of the world.
Championship of the world.
No, but I did feel great, and a lot of injury reduction, and because they're like our, the mindset is like, yes, doing hard things, doing more, but does. Like, you could argue
that is a hard thing, doing it every day.
Yes, and what else is a hard thing? You know what's so messed up about hard? What I used to, the hardest part for me was because I'm used to lifting heavier weights and doing more. I mean, you could tell by looking at me.
Yeah.
How many pounds do you usually?
We're talking at least 2 pounds here.
Oh.
Per arm. No, but
that's just your thumb.
No, but there is something. The hard part is to not work out like a dummy. The hard part is it's very difficult to not lift weights the way you think you should, because you could argue that it's the wrong mindset again, right? It's the short-term thinking. Like, I'm going to get my, you know, those people who go into the gym and they're like, I haven't worked out in months. I'm going to get it all back today.
Yeah. That's,
Right?
Yeah. Without the patience.
That's not patience, right?
And you have DOMs for like 2 weeks.
Yeah. So why, like, the hard thing actually might be to practice restraint in how we train.
It clearly is. If
Interesting.
something we haven't done.
Yeah, but then it gets into all these other things that we're going to talk about later in this podcast about, are we, like, you know, this, are we just setting up our volleyball programs based on gym availability? Like, is there something to be said for like a 45 1-hour practice, few more days a week versus this 2 hours, take 2-3 nights off, next practice, hit the gym, you know? It's an interesting thing because are we setting up the whole thing based on gym availability?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because you could argue, I guarantee you, if you got a club together, I mean, there's the realities of life.
Parents have to drive.
Yes.
And all that, so it's.
But then, if that's the thing that we're not doing and we're not willing to do,
but I
that's
mean,
sort of what we talked about at the top. What are we willing to do? You know, do we want the result?
If you could pepper with your kid for like 15 minutes.
Yeah, well,
that'd be huge.
Oh, yeah.
Parents. Yep. Say that again.
If you can play pepper with them, mind you have to learn how to pepper, and which is a lot in and of itself. But that would be.
And Meach, you want to explain pepper?
Yeah, pepper is the is the back and forth rallying between kid and parent, coach and parent,
Player and
player
player.
and player. That's the other one.
Player and friend.
That's right.
Player and enemy.
That's true. Keep going.
Really? and
Yeah.
mortal.
Player and enemy.
Even if
What's the sequence?
the particular
Meach,
parent.
what's the sequence? You didn't explain it well.
Oh, let's say if
Bump set
well,
spike.
it's
Bump
a
set
little
spike.
bit.
Bump
It's a
set
little
spike.
bit.
Just say bump set spike.
It's a little bit
bump set
on
spike.
air.
Just say bump set spike. Bump set spike.
Just like that.
Set attack.
There we go.
But basically, you know, the art of your kid can always show you if they have any experience with that. But
Meach
basically,
can't explain it.
I
Okay, so you got your salt,
spiking.
and you got your pepper,
Okay.
and you got your maybe you got some
Bump
ketchup
set
and some mustard. What are you talking about?
You can play with 3 people.
No, bump set. You know,
Okay, 4
pepper is
people.
the standard play that players. They probably see kids warming up. One starts with a toss, kid passes it, set, hit down. I don't think we have to explain this. Erik, why do you
I
even?
don't think we
why
should do that.
Well,
Okay. Pass.
What
Set.
sound does the ball make during pepper Meach?
Oh. Boom. That's the
No,
sound that I
I
made.
don't. I
I think
disagree.
you hear Meach
Yeah.
yelling at his kid, "Why didn't you dig that?"
You're never gonna amount to anything.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so any closing tips on mindset, guys? Check your lists. I know we all had a few things written down before the show because we want to make sure we. We talked about. Well, did we talk about mental training? I mean, one thing I would like to say, I think I mentioned it in passing. Mental training is kind of a capitalist thing. I think a moneymaker business idea that. You know, you read about the books I've seen on mental training. A lot of them are. I believe that the sport is the mental training. I think that you gain the mental training. The people who've played sports in our lives, they are the mentally tougher people, generally speaking, or mentally tougher than they would be, right? Had they not played the sport. I find that the booklets can be a little bit of like, hey, read this book and your kid will be mentally tougher.
Yeah.
Because they know they're playing
work.
on the fears of parents. They see their kid afraid out there and they're like, all right, I'll pay $9.95 for that book. No, in fairness, like we are going to come up with our own literature and our own books, but they're going to be a little more
toughness.
Well, it'll include things like it'll include stuff about I think gaining
The myths of it.
Well, the myths of it and gaining perspective on the game
And where it comes from. Like when you're how do you go about getting mentally tough? We'll focus on that.
Practical things that and even the reality that's not going to come from a manual. It's going to come from doing some of the things we talked about in this episode, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the hard answer that people don't want. People don't want to know that it only comes from doing hard things you don't want to do. That's not a sexy answer, right? The sexy answer is, hey, read this 30-page manual and you'll be mentally tougher. I don't want to read the 30-page manual.
Skip to the end.
Yeah, skip to the end. It's okay. It's all pictures. Yeah, so that was one thing I wanted to bring up. And you guys got anything else?
Do you have any, Eric?
Yeah, Eric.
Sleep.
Oh, for
I'm just saying
mental
personally,
toughness. Interesting. That's a good one.
If you're some people are great at having regimented sleep and they get to bed and they do consistently. Personally speaking, I don't do that well, and that's something I'm trying to do better. And it always pays off when I do. Right. So
do you find any things in your day help you sleep?
I find the sleep helps me for the next day.
Sorry, but do you find anything in your daily activities? Is there something that you do in a given day that will help you pass out and sleep like a rock?
Yeah, being definitely exercise or having some type of activity for sure. Yeah,
there it is again.
Yeah,
that hard thing even leads to exhaustion. My sleep schedule is always best when I'm working out. I sleep like a rock, and if I'm not working out, I don't sleep so well.
Yeah,
it's literally, I think, exhaustion, right?
Don't drink too much caffeine. Definitely doesn't work. I can't sleep if I do that. I'm sure there's foods and stuff that can affect certain individuals, but that's.
But yeah, outdoor activity, fresh air, exertion, like tiring things. It's also good for mental health, right? Like we know that if there's one cure for a lot of mental anxieties and stresses, physical exertion is always at the top of the studies. It doesn't get a lot of funding because it's not associated with a medication, but it's always up there. I wrote a lot of papers on the history of mental health in Ontario, in our part of the world, and physical activity is always one of those really interesting because it gets blood circulating, it gets oxygen everywhere, different parts of the brain, things start functioning better, your body, physically, mentally.
That and sleep are both being attacked, like because we're so distracted by it, you know what I mean? And then I don't know how true it is, but like having screens on and stuff like that, but it could be, interrupting.
Well, your brain too is just hyperactive.
Yeah.
Like when you're on a device or doing something that interactive, it's just your brain's gonna take a while to calm down. That's why we don't like phones in the room.
Yeah,
I think the more I hate to I don't want to be that parent always criticizing phones, but I think there is something unique about phones in that it gets our brains amped up, gets us used to being less patient. That's the other thing I had for mindset is the patience. I think that came up early too, the idea that every point matters. I think that's related to the hyperactivity that we get in phones, because our attention span, our ability to focus on things that we don't want to is very short. Like we have no desire to focus on bad things. So it stands to reason that we have no patience for tough things, right?
And I guess if you're paying respect to sleep, that also means you're kind of in a way respecting the health of your own body, right? So it's a way of cherishing what you have, I guess. So
and it is patience too, right? Because you kind of have to have a nice still mind to get there.
Yeah.
Right. Good sleep is having a still mind. If you have a restless, busy mind.
Because if you don't feel tired, still just put yourself to bed or whatever. That's my advice coming from someone who doesn't sleep well.
Yeah. So get a regimented. I mean, I think the one quickest way to fix your sleep pattern is get up early one morning when you're tired and stay awake. Then you'll probably be able to sleep better. If you sleep until noon, you're not gonna.
Yeah.
Meach, do you have anything on your list that we didn't discuss?
Yeah. For getting into mindset, even for players especially, if you want to be able to focus, just do rituals. Okay, so it could be as simple as tossing the ball a certain way. It could be bouncing the ball. It could be I'm talking about especially going into serving, where you have to be locked because that's your responsibility. That's the only time that you have the sole responsibility being a volleyball member. So whether it be
you have total control, you mean, of the ball when
yes,
you're serving.
Exactly. Tossing, spinning, if you're having it be the exact same way before you make that serve, then that can help you prepare.
Takes the thinking out of it too.
Yeah, exactly. It becomes a ritual. It becomes something that you always do, especially if you lock the one that gives you success. Let's say if you do a great jump serve or float serve or underhand serve, doesn't matter what it is. If you do the same thing before every serve, then you're going to be in a much better position. I always would like to, when I was doing any coaching, the coaches should mimic any type of activity where it's out of the normal. Like, say, for example, what are you doing for your players when to set them up for a distraction? Like, say, are you spending any time where you're saying, okay, I'm going to purposefully distract you, yell at you, you know, gently insult them to prepare for when when you have exactly so things that other teams might say, things that fans might say to throw them off the game. You can kind of practice those ahead of time so that it becomes familiar when you are in a game situation.
You have to do that nowadays if there's parents heckling kids.
Yeah, practice stress.
Yeah,
practice
unfortunately.
Practice the stress of the audience, the crowd.
Yeah.
I think too, like the one thing, it's interesting that it's a fun.
Rituals.
Yeah, rituals are cool, but it's a tricky line because sometimes then the kid starts putting too much emphasis on the act of serving or on the act of. Whereas if a kid kind of goes back there with the mentality that, you know what, I need to get this over, but I need to also be free. It's a tricky thing, right? Where because you could be heightening the stress on that kid in the same, you know, by.
Or you're talking about the imposed
heckling, or even just the whole ritual thing of serving. Sometimes the kid takes from that, I can't mess this up, versus I need to free my mind to get to a place.
I think the ritual in a way does free the mind, because it's just you go back to the baseline and you just go into autopilot mode, right?
But the idea behind the ritual is that the ritual will help you not mess up.
Oh,
you know what I mean? See. The ritual will make sure I don't miss it. That's the only thing.
I don't look at it that way. I
know.
I look at the ritual as just like I don't know, like
because it's your own. So when you go into it, you go into that mindset. It's if you miss, it's an afterthought. But while you're in the zone, when you're doing what you're supposed to do and you do it consistently, what happens as a result?
Well, one thing I don't like, one thing I have told players about with ritual is that, and I tell them this when they go back to the service line, part of the reason why players mess up so much, and if you think about for all the things we're talking about here, is they're too self-obsessed. And I think ritual can bring them even more into their own heads. One thing I like to tell them is take a look at the other court and just try to get the ball in a spot that you want. Like aim for a spot and hit it any way you want. And the beauty of that is, so this is a problem when coaches are telling players where to serve for too long. They're not letting the player distract themselves from their own thoughts or their own routines. For me, I do tell players, like, you know, you can have a ritual, that's good. Obviously I have a serving ritual, everybody does. But as soon as you're done that, your focus should stop thinking about whether or not you're going to make the serve and start thinking about where are you going to get the point right now. That player, that gap between players. By the way, I hate that the players always think about serving to a player, not in between players. And once their minds get used to that, you'll find that the errors go down less, because I agree, the routine is always helpful for sure for getting the thing. But I like to tell them to get off of themselves really fast. Don't look at my clipboard. You figure out where the spot is to serve, and you get the confidence from working that out. And you're even distracted from the idea of messing up. So many kids, when they go back on the back line, all they're thinking about is don't miss, don't miss, don't miss, don't miss. And if you teach them, don't even think about missing. Think about attacking.
Right.
And then the player, and I'm not discounting the thing. I'm just saying, like, I like to make sure that they don't stay in that routine, because a lot of players, when you teach them get in the routine, they stay locked in now don't miss, rather than attack mode. And attack mode is not inward. It's not anxiety producing.
Yes, that can be part of the ritual in itself.
That's a good point.
As you go back to attack line, I'm going to attack it as to the best of my ability, and I'll do it consistently.
I just wanted to distract the audience from you saying that the coach should taunt the player. So no, but I that is one thing I notice about players when they do go back to serve, that they're.
I know what you mean.
I like
they're
to tell them, stop thinking about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I almost think of it like, you know, we talked about anxiety before, about self-obsession. stop thinking about yourself. Just go attack that player. And then you'll watch the player won't miss because they're like, oh, yeah, why am I worried about me? I should be worried about them. Well, I mean, they might miss. But, what I mean is if the goal is to not, a lot of coaches just want to win right now and get every point. The way to actually do that, remember you said you had a coach that made you guys focus more on serving all practice. That's the last thing you want them to do. You want them to think less about serving. Right? If flow state and getting in the mode, we've all been there, we're like on fire.
They'll generally have a more successful or more aggressive serve.
Yeah, everybody who's not thinking about themselves, like in life or in sport, if you're not overly obsessed with yourself and what you're doing, you're going to do much better. Just stop thinking about yourself. Get over yourself, right? Like everybody who's thinking constantly about themselves, they don't succeed because they're too distracted. Like if they think everybody's watching them, or I'm going to fail, or I'm going to do this. Whereas the goal, that's what team sports were so valuable.
Popular.
It makes you not think about yourself. It makes you think about the team. Yeah. And we are living in a society where everybody's increasingly thinking about themselves, and we wonder why this toxic behavior is surfacing in this sacred place of sports where it's never been the case. It's always been about team. Well, that's why, because society. So the goal for every coach and parent and player should get themselves, get their kids off the self focus. That's what team is all about, right? So, yeah.
The singular most silent moment we've ever had in the history of Volleyballology.
The final episode ever.
No, one more, right?
We have one more? Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. No, sorry. There's hopefully lots more.
One more, and then we can shower.
What? Why is like all of us?
Yeah.
Together?
Well, you guys have been showering this whole time? I thought I said we're not going to shower until we do 5 episodes.
You say are we all showering together?
I never said that.
Because I feel I'm bathed.
I never said
it's
that.
a group
Why?
consciousness.
Meach is gonna try to trick us into this. So I had. No
one cares.
Well, I did have the thing. Did we talk about? I think we talked about this. The hanging off every point, hanging off every victory. That's the most toxic thing. If we were to sum up one thing, and I think a lot of things we talked about today help you get to that point, because you can't just tell someone to stop caring about a point. They need perspective, right? And you only gain perspective through...
That's a skill for sure.
Yeah, through wisdom and difficult things and doing those hard things. And that gives you the perspective that, oh yeah, this point doesn't matter. Like, I'll be honest with you, like the harder things get in my life, or when I hit walls in life that were like really tough, makes everything else.
Or the walls at the back of the gym.
You mean from running or hitting?
From serving.
Just runs it.
No, but whenever things get really difficult, everything else seems easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the philosophy. Like
we've come across this theme as well, haven't we? Already.
I think we've talked about everything.
As soon as you go through, as soon as you go through something crazy tough.
Buddhists are all monks.
I'm very sorry.
Yes, Erik is sorry. To those people, did you say those people?
Yeah. I'm fucking. Oh my god.
I'm just gonna unplug
to everyone. I'm very sorry to everyone.
No, I'm sorry to everyone ever. Yeah. No, I think we're all good then, eh?
Yep.
So.
And everybody is good.
So, if you're mentally weak, stop it. All right, guys. That was a good show. I think that was a really helpful philosophical place. And I enjoyed it.
That's right.
And we'll be back next week with another show, perhaps. Or maybe this is it.
Or maybe not, yeah.
I sure hope they don't cancel us.
Oh, my God.
All right.
What's the big idea?